are now listening to a Forward Mile Podcast Network production.
All right, and welcome into the next edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. We are sitting in studio on Sunday night and not watching premium cable.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's true. I'd rather do this anyway. So, plus, there's nothing good on premium cable anymore, is there? Like Game of Thrones isn't on, Entourage isn't on.
There's too many damn commercials.
I feel like I got DirecTV just for the NFL and NHL package. Like, I don't watch anything else.
Yeah, no, I got it for the NFL package, and I signed up actually in week 17 of this past football season. They were like, "Oh, you get the rest of the season for free." It's like, yeah, if I had waited
6 hours?
If I had waited 2 weeks, I probably would have gotten the next 2 seasons for free. So,
well, how does that work? Because I basically what I do is when they want to re-up me for $400, I just have the lady call and be kind of a dick, and they reduce it to like $199.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's got some good qualities.
Yeah, I have
being bad.
we just signed up for DirecTV when we moved to the new place, so we're still under the original.
Oh, you
contract.
got the rest of the season free. You got the promo offer in week 17.
Yeah, I got the promo.
Yeah, you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, no, I realize that now. Also, they doubled the amount of the gift card they gave away about a week after I signed up too. So
running good.
That was nice.
Wow. So anyways, well, thank you very much for tuning in. We are the Vegas Squares. Spike, Anthony, and Aaron. We are sitting here in the studio again, like I said. We've got a couple of topics to talk about. Interesting things that have happened this week in the NFL and golf, and some interesting stuff in the world of hockey that we kind of thought we'd take a look at. Let's dive right in. First couple of things, just rattle these off. I mean, Richard Sherman was in this week subsequently released by the Seahawks and eventually signed by the 49ers for the exact same money. $11 million a year. This kind of brings about the downfall or the eventual decline of what is known as the Legion of Boom and that Seattle defense. We've now seen Michael Bennett gone. We've now seen Richard Sherman gone. Cam Chancellor may not play ever again. And Earl Thomas, if you remember last year, he was trying to fish his way out of Seattle by begging Jason Garrett.
And I don't see them signing Cliff Averill again as well.
Right. So. I don't want to dive too far into the political spectrum in this, but does this kind of look as a situation where, look, when things are going great, and all these guys want to chirp and talk about their politics and talk about whatever, yeah, okay, finally the GM's back off, but the minute you start not producing on the field like you should, out the door you go.
Yeah, I would say so. I think Seattle's more fit for a hockey team now instead of a football team.
Well, that's a weird thing to say. They're like 4 years removed from a Super Bowl and an appearance. It's just cyclical in the NFL. On that point, Spike's chomping at the bit. Let me just stop. I'll let him just.
I had a comment, but
that was a weird statement. Yes,
it was just completely fucking railroaded. God Almighty!
They still have one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
I would say he's better than Stafford. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a hard thing to say.
I mean, is that the line that we're using to measure quarterbacks?
Is he the Mendoza line?
Yeah. He's the 15th ranked quarterback.
Fair enough.
All right. No, I think it is. I think it's always been about production in the NFL, and I think we've seen that with guys who not only are chirping about politics, but we look at guys like Ray Lewis, who, the whole.
Just say the M word.
Party to a murder, allegedly or not. He was back in the league. Ray Rice, when he had his domestic violence scandal, he was no longer a viable asset to a team, so he never got signed again.
Right. Well, that's kind of where I'm saying. Like, their MO was murder or domestic violence. The Seahawks' method of operation is chatting about political divisiveness.
Right, but I don't even think that the politics has anything to do with it. I think it's their production was down, so they're gone.
Well, I mean, Michael Bennett had 8.5 sacks last year.
Yeah.
She got flipped for a, 7th-round pick, 5th-round pick?
But, I mean, that could just be Pete Carroll seeing that those 8.5 sacks, that was the last he was going to get out of him. This is why guys like Belichick have traded Richard Seymour. They traded Logan Mankins. You know, they trade guys that still seem like they are producing at a high level, knowing that they're about to fall off a cliff, and they get something.
Who are they cutting cap to pay, though, at this point? Russell's paid. I mean, your receivers are a lot of no-names. I think Doug Baldwin may get paid, but they may cut him, too. I mean, you have nothing in the running back department. I know they have to beef up the offensive line because that offensive line's probably shaved a year or two off of Russell Wilson's career at this point. But, I mean, Richard Sherman basically was cut, subsequently signed for the exact same price tag that he was making in Seattle, coming off of Achilles injury. So that would lead me to believe that San Francisco believes he's still good enough to compete at a high level, because $11 million, or was it $13 million?
It was 13.
$13 million a year for a cornerback is
right, but
elite level status.
Let's not forget that San Francisco's GM is still pretty fucking green as a GM, and he may not have all the same knowledge and that kind of insider information that a more experienced
Well, what
GM
position
had.
did he play as a player?
I understand that, but
I mean, if he's going to know how somebody's going to operate, it's going to be a defensive back.
yeah, well, I mean, not necessarily. He's not going to know, you know, he knows how he was able to operate. He knows how his teammates were able to operate. But as a GM, he doesn't have the same experience evaluating players that other GMs have.
It's fair enough. I mean, Sherman said he wanted to go to a contender, and I think we all believe, like you said, that San Francisco's not ready right now, with the exception of maybe Jimmy Garoppolo, you know, being able to cover up a lot of weaknesses. I'm just saying, you're putting $13 million into this spot. You're telling me that you still believe he is an elite level corner. I mean, Malcolm Butler's not going to make $13 million, in my opinion.
Oh, no.
So, who makes $13 million right now? Like Patrick Peterson. Obviously, Richard Sherman did, but like that was like Revis type money back in the day. You know, remember when Revis? What did he sign with Patriots? 1 year, $20 million.
Was it that much? I honestly
When they won a Super Bowl?
I think it was like 16, 18, but it was still pretty steep.
Yeah, I don't remember how much it was. I remember it being hefty, but I don't remember the price tag.
To me, it just seems like, okay, so this is where I look at it. If another team in the NFL, in your own division, still thought he was worth the same amount of money you were paying him, to me it seems like you cut him for reasons other than his production. That's where I see it.
Yeah, I know he met with the Lions early on Saturday. I woke up to a tweet and I'm like, fuck, I hope we don't sign him just because that he's coming off of injury. I still think he's a great defensive back, but if anybody's going to overpay for him, it's going to be the Lions.
Would you have taken him in New England?
Sherman? Mm-hmm. I mean, if anybody can squeeze the last ounces of production out of him, it would be Belichick, so I could see that happening.
But would you be willing to squeeze those? If he squeezed production out of him, would you be willing to?
Not at $13 million.
Put up, well,
yeah.
That's the question: is if any actually contender came calling, because from what I look like, it says Titans, Lions, Raiders, Buccaneers, and 49ers. Who's the most ready to contend at that point? Titans and the 49ers, correct?
I'd probably.
Well, Titans made the playoffs, so they've got to be the closest.
Right,
to contention.
it's got to be the Titans out of anybody in that list.
But the Titans probably couldn't offer $13 million a year.
God.
So if you're not really getting offers from competitors, which would be, i.e., Patriots, Steelers, Packers, Broncos, maybe if they get the right quarterback, etc.
Do we not think that Oakland is going to compete now that they're changing the guard at head coach and all that? Do we think that Derek Carr is done? I honestly don't know.
With some additions and some upgrades, yes, they can compete. As they sit right now,
yeah, but any team can say that.
Right, but as they sit,
I don't see it being contender right now.
Well, when Richard Sherman qualifies a contender, I think is if the season started today, you got 6 teams. I mean, New Orleans is a contender.
Yeah.
Philadelphia would be a contender, obviously. New England, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville would be a contender.
Maybe Atlanta.
Imagine Richard Sherman as like the third cornerback in Jacksonville.
Fuck.
That'd be insane.
If he was still,
paid that much.
No, if he was still as good as he was before. I mean, Richard Sherman is a generational type cornerback. He shut down half the field. As much as he yaps and as much as I'm not a huge fan of him, credit where credit's due.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's just to me, I seem like he jumped the gun a little fast.
Hey, this just came out actually just within the last couple of hours. The only guaranteed portion of Richard Sherman's 3-year, $39 million contract is the $3 million signing bonus.
Wow. Really?
He's only getting $3 million guaranteed because he represents himself. He doesn't have an agent.
Right, I see that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find. So he's only got $3 million guaranteed. So if he doesn't play it down, he's getting $3 million basically at that point.
Right. So for that kind of a contract, I think it makes it much more enticing for a team like the Patriots that might be looking for that kind of help. So it's a little surprising that he was released, met with San Francisco, and immediately signed.
Yeah, it was like within 3 or 4 days.
Do you think he has a revenge factor on his mind?
To stay in the division? I'm sure.
He's going to play him twice.
Right, that's got to be part of it.
And I mean, he knows, looking at their lineup here, I'm looking at their depth chart, he's going to start if he's healthy.
Yeah.
They've got nothing as far as cornerbacks go. So, he's going to have to earn his money, I guess, at this point. I mean, so you're saying basically they can cut him each of the 3 years or each of the first 2 years and basically not have to pay that. But if he earns his worth, $13 million might seem like a bargain for a guy who could shut down half the field for you.
Definitely.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to make a division and / playoff push.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fair. I'm not hating the contract. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I saw that.
What y'all doing?
I thought I was being subtle and trying to keep things so that it wasn't being picked up on the mic, but I was just pointing out to him that the Lions are hosting free agent DeMarco Murray on Monday.
So
and
today,
instead of just nodding so that it wouldn't actually, come out over the air, he decided to actually start talking.
Yeah, he says things a lot. Actually, that leads me to my next point here, because I was actually getting ready to switch to DeMarco Murray, and you're right, the Lions are hosting DeMarco Murray. He was just cut by Tennessee, which means Tennessee is going all in on Derrick Henry at this point, which he had a good playoff game against Kansas City, but is Derrick Henry, before we get into DeMarco Murray, is Derrick Henry ready to shoulder the load as the primary back?
You said load.
Lipscomb.
heavy load.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Henry will struggle briefly, but then probably will slide into that role.
All right. Well, he's definitely sliding into the role because they've given it to him.
Yeah.
But, all right, well, let's move on to DeMarco Murray. I mean, what was it, 3-4 years ago, he was the leading rusher in the NFL. He took a ton of carries in Dallas. So far, he has had 2 stops in Tennessee and Philadelphia, none of which have been awful. They just haven't been DeMarco Murray of 4 years ago status. DeMarco Murray could make a lot of sense in Detroit because they don't really have the back that can take 300 carries, but the question is DeMarco Murray still the back that could take 300 carries?
I think if he were to sign with Detroit, he could be that back and possibly get about 250, 300.
I mean, that kind of running back, is key if that kind of running back can stay healthy. I mean, there's not a lot of those out there left.
No, and the criticism on Murray was always that he was so successful in Dallas because he was running behind the best offensive line in the game, and that any running back could have put up those kind of numbers or better.
Let me see Ezekiel Elliott.
Right. So it's the kind of thing where, is it that his production is going down, or is it that he doesn't have the players around him to make him better? Does he, if he doesn't have that offensive line, clearly he's not the same player that he was in Dallas. So,
but that's the question: is he not the same player because of the cast of characters around him?
Right. And I mean, that's got to be part of it. A superstar type running back is going to be good no matter where they go, even if they have shit in front of them. And DeMarco Murray hasn't. And it pains me to say that because he's a Vegas boy. Mm-hmm. But
if there's any team that can take a running back with no supporting cast, and that running back became a superstar, it's the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Barry Sanders.
Oh, yeah.
Well, but that does lead me to the next question is, all right, as our resident Detroit Lions insider, is that line good enough to support DeMarco Murray as the Thunder and what do you have? What's his name? Akeem Abdullah?
Amir
Abdullah as the Lightning.
I'd rather have DeMarco Murray and Theo Riddick instead of Amir
I forgot about
Abdullah.
Theo Riddick. But the point being is they'll have a change of pace back from the guy who's going to carry the load because DeMarco Murray in Tennessee was the Lightning. Derrick Henry was the Thunder.
Yeah.
And sometimes when DeMarco Murray was out running screen routes and wheel routes, they ended up actually becoming injured because of those. So now he becomes the load again. Does Detroit have to look at... I said load again, I know. Does Detroit have to look at upgrading that offensive line to protect what DeMarco Murray is now a, 28-year-old running back? Maybe even older than that?
Detroit, no matter what, has to beef off their offensive line. They've got
30.
They've got a few free agents right now, and I'm leaning towards they're just not going to re-sign half of them just because they need upgrades.
I mean, what's DeMarco Murray worth on the open market at this point? I mean, what do you think he's going to get? 5 or 6?
I would say 5.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to look at the other running backs that are either still out there or that have already signed. Like Chris Ivory at 30 years old signed 2 years, $5.5 million at Buffalo.
So he's 2.75 a year on average annual value.
Murray's got to be worth more than that, but it can't be that much more. Maybe 3.5 a year.
Well, I mean, obviously Detroit's going to try to get him for the best price, but
yeah,
you got to also make sure he doesn't walk out that door. If you really want him, you got to get him on contract.
Right, but I mean, it's the kind of thing where you can't imagine there's going to be too heavy a bidding war because, I mean, just looking at reading some of the names that are free agent running backs, Dion Lewis, Carlos Hyde, Jerick McKinnon, Isaiah Crowell, Rex Burkhead, Frank Gore, Darren Sproles, Alfred Morris, LeGarrette Blount.
And that's the thing. Now DeMarco looks like the shiny toy at that spot.
Does he?
I would
read that list again.
Dion Lewis.
Okay.
Carlos Hyde.
Can't carry Dion Lewis can't carry the load. Carlos Hyde can.
Jerick McKinnon.
Can't carry the load.
Isaiah Crowell.
Can't do it. Rex
Burkhead.
Can't do it.
Frank Gore. Nope. Frank Gore and Darren Sproles are too old, but
yeah.
Alfred Morris.
I wouldn't say he's be able to take 300 carries.
LeGarrette Blount.
Nope.
You don't think Blount would
300 carries?
Blount.
Yeah,
I would say Blount could.
How many carries has Blount had? What's the number one carry year for him?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, he's always been part of a two-headed running back monster. But
I would say
not
probably
in Tampa. He was.
I would say probably 220 was the most he had one year.
Let's look. Pro Football Reference. With Tampa, he was the lead back. His most carries was 300. Actually, he did have 300 in 2016. There you go.
There you go.
I stand corrected. I apologize. But before that, he never had over 200 carries. And in Philadelphia last year, he had 170. Again, you're right. Was he really a two-headed? Well, he was a two-headed monster in that spot. But I mean, he's now what, 30? 31.
Blount's 31.
31. Yeah. So
then you also have Jeremy Hill, Damian Williams, or
Jeremy Hill could be a good back.
Darkwa.
But none of these guys are telling me $5 million a year at that point. You know what I'm saying?
Right, but that also doesn't necessarily mean that suddenly inflates DeMarco Murray's value to.
That's exactly what it does.
No, it doesn't.
That's exactly what it does.
It drives down the cost on the market.
It doesn't necessarily drive down. Well, it drives down the cost of those other guys because they're all in Tier 2. DeMarco Murray looks like Tier 1 status, and maybe even LeGarrette Blount at that point. But DeMarco Murray, it's like the Kirk Cousins situation. Kirk Cousins isn't a great quarterback, but without Drew Brees on the market, he's the golden goose. He's going to get $30 million a year.
Right, but quarterback and running back are two completely different animals.
I understand that, but a 30-year-old running back that you can get I think you can get him for 3 years, 4 or 5, like. You can get him for like a 3-year 10, 3-year 12, something like that.
Oh yeah, no,
that's $4 million.
I agree. 3.5, 4 sounds more reasonable than 5. I don't think.
Yeah.
But Jerick McKinnon's not getting $5 million a year, and
no.
Jeremy Hill and
none of these guys are.
I think Blount would. I think Blount would be probably 3.5 or something at best.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So if you're in the need for a running back like Detroit, like San Francisco, who's clearly not going to make an attempt to re-sign Hyde. They have that Breida guy, which may or may not be the answer. Who knows? But I mean, he would make sense in San Francisco.
Yeah,
He'd be a good,
offensive
insurance policy for Garoppolo.
He could block. He could open up his pass game, and
could he be if he can't get anything on the market, could you see him maybe going? McFadden retired, and they're clearly not resigning Morris. Could you see him going back to Dallas?
No.
Zeke and DeMarco?
No.
Could you see him going back for $2 or $3 million?
No.
I mean, I think.
Could you imagine that headed monster?
If they were the high bidder, then yeah, and that would be unreal. That ground game.
Oh my goodness! If Dak Prescott can't win, then I don't know what to tell you. He's got to get some receivers though. Let's look at DeMarco Murray. I'm kind of curious as to his stats at this point in his career. He's played 99 games. That's not the right website. There it is. He has played 99 games at this point. He's got 7,000 yards, 49 touchdowns, 9,300 all-purpose yards, and 55 total touchdowns. I mean, he's got 3 1,000-yard years, including the 1845, which was the year that he turned into the MVP, or not the MVP, but the Player of the Year or whatever. And he hasn't really been able to. I mean, in Tennessee, 2 years ago, he had 1,287 yards and 9 touchdowns at 28 years old. So we're talking 2 years later. He played 15 games, had 700 yards rushing, and another 266 receiving. I feel like he didn't play that many games last year. It seemed like he was hurt a lot more than that, but I guess not. So there's a chance that he still has some tread in the tires. I don't see why he can't get $4.5 to $5 million a year. So I'll set the over/under at 4. I'll say he gets 4 or more.
Ooh.
On average annual value.
Ooh. If you said 4.5, I'd take the under, but
yeah,
I think you're right on.
That's what I was thinking too. I mean, 3.5 still seems plausible to me, just because the glut of running backs that are out there, I think, will drive the price down a little bit. Yeah, I'll take under 4.
I think he's going to get in the neighborhood of 2 for 9 or 3 for 12.
You want me to add that to your bet?
Sure.
Yeah, why not?
Sure.
What are we putting down on these things?
DeMarco.
$5, $10, whatever.
I think you said 5 or 10.
Yeah, $5 is cool.
Yeah, all right.
DeMarco Murray, when he signs, average annual value of his contract, 4 is a push. Anything above 4 would be mine, and anything below 4 would be yours.
Yeah, all right.
I'm going to say he falls into the 2 for 9 or 3 for 12. Somewhere around there, because he might be looking for more security. Then he might be looking for more stability contract than a cost-effective contract. So we'll see. The Rams got another guy, Talib. They're just beefing up that secondary.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think it was won by the Broncos, free up some of that cap space.
Yeah, they talk about cap space. If you don't get Cousins at this point, all these teams. Like, what do you do with all that cap space now? I know that's a silly, stupid, straightforward question. I know that's a straightforward question, but like the Jets.
You get a backup punter.
Take the Broncos. I mean, at this point, they still have a good enough defense to be contention. They're basically, their offense is, C.J. Anderson. They have 2 really good receivers, a pretty good tight end. They're a quarterback away. And they're not a drafted quarterback away. They are like a guy who, like Kirk Cousins, could come in there and take the team up to the next level. But if they don't get Kirk Cousins, like, what do you do in that spot with all this cap space you're freeing up? It's like, who's the next guy on the list? Like
Des Bryant,
NFL free agent. They don't need a receiver though. Like, the next guy on the list of free agent quarterbacks is obviously Drew Brees, but he's not. For all intents and purposes, he's not re-signing. My question is just like, the Jets, the Cardinals, all these guys are moving. Vikings. I mean, the Vikings seem to be the front runner of what everybody says, but what if they don't get them? Then they just released all 3 of their other quarterbacks who know the offense.
Is Mark Sanchez a free agent?
He is a free agent. And he still won't respond to our fucking tweets.
No.
Damn it.
This guy's an asshole.
Yeah.
Hey, he should join our bracket challenge.
Yeah, hey, Mark, if you're out there, we just did a bracket challenge. It's It's on CBS Sports. You can catch it at Token Tony's Vegas or Token Tony's Twitter. It's Token Tony 89, Mr. Sanchez. You can set up your bracket there under the team name Butt Fumble.
How fucking sick of the butt fumble do you think Mark Sanchez is?
I don't know. I feel like
I feel like that helps his value.
I feel like right now he's sick of it, but when he's on Renegades at Caesars and has nothing else to talk about in 20 years, then he'll be thankful that he's like, because in 20 years he'll be like, Mark Sanchez, who the fuck is the butt fumble guy? Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right, I can see that.
Yeah. Like who else is like that? Like Rod Smart. Do you know who Rod Smart is?
No.
Exactly. But do you know who He Hate Me is?
Oh yeah.
There you go. Telling you, that guy's going to live off of that for the rest of his life. So, yeah, top free agents is Drew Brees, Kirk Cousins. Let's see. Case Keenum they have here, and A.J. McCarron as the next two top free agents. So that's what I'm saying. If you don't get Kirk Cousins, you're left with Case Keenum, who's done it for 1 year, and he's already 30. Or A.J. McCarron, who hasn't done it yet, and he's already 28.
Yeah, and
out of those two, I would take Keenum.
Yeah, but I mean, looking down the rest of the list, it doesn't get better.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying that's why Kirk Cousins is going to get $30 million because he's the golden goose in the free agent class.
Right. Oh wait, I take that back. I see the last three: Ryan Mallett, Scott Tolzien, and Matt Castle are all on here.
Fair enough. You're right. Yeah.
I'm taking Castle before I take any of these guys.
And see here
I would
it is.
take Mallett.
So that's what I'm saying. Here it is. You got Kirk Cousins, Case Keenum, A.J. McCarron, Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Bradford, Josh McCown, Colin Kaepernick, Geno Smith, Ryan Fitzpatrick just re-upped, Matt Moore, Jay Cutler, Derek Anderson, Drew Stanton, Tom Savage. For those of you who can't see, I literally went Kirk Cousins way up here, and on the floor is all the rest of the guys I'm naming at this point. Tom Savage, Chad Henne, Blaine Gabbert, E.J. Manuel, and Johnny Manziel. He's only 25. I thought he was older than that. Oh, I'm sorry. The list goes on. Mark Sanchez, Ryan Mallett, Joe Webb, Kellen Clemens, Austin Dave. Any of that. None of that is intriguing, right?
No.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. That's why Kirk Cousins is the star attraction at this point. And that's what's scary about it because he's going to set the market for Aaron Rodgers' contract here coming up in a couple of years, too.
Oh, shit, yeah.
And it's probably going to be all guaranteed, and that's probably what all quarterbacks are going to get from now on is all guaranteed money.
I've heard that Kirk Cousins has been all guaranteed. The $91 million has been guaranteed at this point. 3 years, 91, all guaranteed.
See what the Jets have to counter offer with that.
3 years, 92, 91 guaranteed. So, anyways, we fell off Talib. We were talking about Talib.
Yeah.
I mean, Talib will be fine in L.A. I mean, they're taking on character issues anyways with Marcus Peters. Mm-hmm. I guess just add another one to the mix.
Yeah, and we talked about this last week where I'm still very curious to see how the coaching staff in L.A. is able to handle some of the bigger personalities, let's put it that way, that are coming to the Rams this year.
And they're going to be in L.A., like you said, so that's going to be interesting to take a look at. If things start to spiral, if the Rams don't get out of the gate like they want to, or there are going to be some issues from these guys, I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting to take a look at, that's for sure.
Yeah. Another point that we were talking about a couple weeks ago was Jarvis Landry.
Yeah, he got the boot out of Miami.
Yeah.
I guess I'll never understand, and it's, like I said, it's always market value, because we talked about Garoppolo. Everybody's like, how do you only get a second-round pick for him? Well, that was all that was on the table, from what we understand. That was the best offer that was available, that was reported. Everybody thought he could get first-round picks. Everybody thought there was first-round picks available. That turned out to be not the case at the time.
Right, and it's possible that when the Patriots made the decision to trade Garoppolo, that they didn't market him to the rest of the league as well as maybe they should. I mean, it sounds like when Belichick made the decision to trade Garoppolo, he only made a couple of phone calls. So, if that message gets out a little bit wider, then maybe there's a bidding war. But again, we don't know that would have been the case. It's all speculation.
Second round and 6th round pick or something.
Right.
I think it was just a second round, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just a second round.
It was just a second. But yeah, if somebody
throws in a seventh, it's a clearly incentively better deal.
Right.
Even if it is just a seventh. But that's the thing. Jarvis went for a 4th and a 7th To me, a guy who's making 100 catches. So you have a guy who's got 100 catches, who plays basically a slot receiver position, who's been one of the best receivers in the game over the last 2-3 years, getting traded for a 4th and a 7th, signing franchise tags. Nobody wants to ink him to a long-term deal. This kind of sets a barometer for OBJ as well. This guy can perform just as well as you can, and he's not going to get $20 million a year. No. So it just, to me, shocks to me that this was the market value for him. And the Browns, actually, to me, made a great deal.
I think
that
so.
never happens.
And I believe they actually signed their paperwork in time, too, and all that.
Well, there was no deadline. They actually haven't officially made the deal because they still have 3 days to do it because the league year starts on the 14th.
Yeah.
So these trades actually take effect on the 14th. But what I'm saying is that you're going to tell me, as a Browns fan or a front office guy, that for a 4th and a 7th, which are probably, 4th this year, 7th next year, is probably nobody that's going to be.
Unless if you're looking for a punter and a kicker or something.
Oh my God, with the punters, they're not going to be impact guys, is what I'm saying. I got an impact guy who's got 2 straight 100 catch seasons for the potential of 2 guys who probably won't even make the squad.
Right, for a team that hasn't had a 100 reception receiver in
ever.
God knows how long.
Ever. They've never had one.
Oh, there you go.
Wow.
So they haven't had one in their history of their 69-year franchise. I saw the stat that came out somewhere.
Jeez.
So now you put Jarvis Landry with Josh Gordon and maybe Saquon Barkley in the backfield with Tyrod Taylor. Because Tyrod Taylor, you're telling me that Tyrod Taylor went for a 3rd-round pick. That tells me you're not drafting Darnold or Rosen, correct? You're not drafting number 1. You're not drafting QB number 1, in my opinion.
In my mind, no. You're probably drafting a running back if you still have the number 1.
Because you've got to think you're drafting Darnold or Rosen to start right away, right? Those guys are going to start right away. You could look at Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen later, maybe with your 4th or trading back or who knows what. You could look at those guys as more of a guy that, hey, in 1 or 2 years or more, if need be, that could be my starter. Because I think Tyrod's got 2 years left on his deal, if I'm not mistaken.
But it's Cleveland. They probably start in the 2nd week of the season, though.
If they feel he's ready. I mean, if you feel somebody's ready, then that's fine. But I'm saying,
add another name to the back of the jersey.
Yeah, he's got 2 more years left. Tyrod does, and he'll be bringing in his cap hit will be $16 million. Actually, he's got 1 year left. Excuse me. He's got $16 million cap hit this year. So at this point, he's a 1-year stopgap between whoever you draft. I mean, you could realistically draft Darnold. I got to imagine this is Hugh Jackson's last year. He's 2 years in. He's 1-31.
Yeah.
And they just hired Dorsey as the new GM. They probably wants his guy at this point. So I guess he's going to put these guys on the field and say, see what you can do with it, Hugh. And anything's an upgrade. If they go 1-15,
that's a win.
They got 100% win increase.
Right, but then the question becomes, how invested do you get in a quarterback this year if the plan is to fire the head coach and bring in a new coaching staff next year with a new offensive scheme? Maybe the guy you draft this year doesn't necessarily fit the scheme you want to run next year.
Maybe, or if he feels, I think if they draft a quarterback this year, they feel like Hugh Jackson's staff is going to be in place for a few years. If he didn't like Hugh Jackson, I feel like they would have gotten rid of him already because Hugh Jackson was supposed to be fired after this season, and then they hired new people, and he was supposed to be fired after that, and he's still there. I got to imagine this guy Dorsey's probably thinking it's not the coach. If I can get the right pieces on the field, anybody can coach an NFL team. I know that sounds weird to say anybody, but I mean like anybody with NFL experience like Hugh Jackson can coach a group of talented NFL players. It's like Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson may be the greatest coach of all time, or he may have had Kobe, Shaq, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, etc. I'm not comparing Hugh Jackson to Phil Jackson. Those are different Jacksons. If you've never looked at them in a picture, they're not brothers. My point being is that,
they're brothers.
okay, that's a bad example. I mean, it's not a horrible example. Eric Spoelstra in Miami.
Ah, yes.
When he had the big 3.
Yeah.
Was he really coaching? You know what I mean? Or were they coaching themselves? Does anybody coach LeBron anymore? No, he coaches himself.
Yeah, doesn't LeBron force coaches out that he doesn't like?
That's what I hear.
Have I heard that?
Yeah, you've heard that. My point being is
LeBron's
that
like the GM
you got
of the
Jarvis
team.
Landry, you got Josh Gordon. If you can draft Saquon Barkley, they have Duke Johnson, who's another pretty decent running back in the backfield back there. They've got halfway decent defense. They've got a division where you have an old Big Ben, which the Pittsburgh Steelers will still be good. You have Joe Flacco and the Ravens, who, let's face it, they're average at best.
No, yeah.
And
they're way down from even a couple of years ago.
And Tyrod Taylor may have a revenge factor in that spot, being from, played with Baltimore. I don't know. There may be something there as a motivational tool. And you have the Bengals, who aren't very good. This team, I'm not saying they're going to be making the playoffs, but I think, they can definitely improve with the pieces they got on the field. Draft Saquon Barkley at 1, trade back, maybe pick up Lamar Jackson. If you like the way Tyrod Taylor plays, maybe Lamar Jackson's just an early, a younger version of him. You just slides right in.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah. They can't be worse than last year, so.
They cannot be. They can only be equally as bad.
That's true.
So that's something positive. Hey, Cleveland, you got something positive going for you.
Yeah, there you go, Cleveland.
Give yourself a pat on the back, guys.
And they got rid of Deshaun Kaiser. They traded him to Cleveland for Demarius Randall, which...
Wait, Cleveland traded to Cleveland?
They traded him to Green Bay, excuse me.
There you go.
Thank you. Sorry.
Cleveland would trade with Cleveland.
Cleveland would fuck that deal up, too, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they'd somehow include Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh would get a third-round pick out of it.
I know, right? We're going to trade Deshaun Kaiser to ourselves and then ship Pittsburgh our conditional picks.
Yeah.
Anywho, let's... I think the Browns... Basically, moral of the story, I think the Browns made some pretty decent moves that set them up, hopefully, for success. It's really weird. As much as I could care less about the Browns, I kind of want to see them not be as abysmal as they are.
Yeah, it seems like that fan base deserves a better team than what they have. Especially
one playoff appearance.
I mean, the last playoff win that they have was, 96, when Belichick was still the head coach?
Maybe, yeah, I don't even know. They don't have any. They have no playoff wins since they returned.
Right.
Which is 20 years ago.
Right,
or
so
19 years ago.
It would have been 96 because it was the next year that the Browns announced that they were moving. So, do you remember who the Browns beat in their playoff game?
I have no idea.
It was the Drew Bledsoe-led New England Patriots under Pete Carroll.
And that would have been 96?
Yeah, or 95.
I'll say 96, they went to the Super Bowl, didn't they?
The 90. Yeah, you're right. So it would have been 95.
Well, no, that would have been the 95 season.
Where's the fucking crack research staff when you need them?
Browns playoff victories.
I know the last Browns playoff victory was when Belichick was the coach and they beat Pete Carroll and the New England Patriots. I just don't remember what year it was.
Here you go. Cleveland Browns playoff history. Can't be much.
Yeah, it's got to be a short page.
It's more than Detroit's.
You have the 94 playoffs. They beat New England and then lost to Pittsburgh. You are correct. They beat them
94, so even earlier.
Yeah, so earlier than that.
Hey,
That was actually Sunday, January 1st, 1995. New England lost to Cleveland 20-13.
They actually have more of a recent playoff win than the Detroit Lions.
And actually, their wild card game against Pittsburgh, when Derek Anderson led them, they only lost 36-33. So,
wow. Oh, there you go.
Anywho, you had brought up something this week. You texted me about. We want to jump into hockey. You talked about some their playoff format in one of the leagues the little leagues you follow.
Yeah, I actually don't follow this league all that much, except they're an interesting league. It's the SPHL, Southern Professional Hockey League. They're a 10-team league. They're, minor league. I'll give you a couple of the team names here, like the Birmingham Bulls, the Evansville Thunderbolts, the Fayetteville Marksmen, the Huntsville Havoc, which is actually a really cool name.
That is kind of cool.
But the reason that this league is important and the reason that what they're doing is important is that this league started the 3-on-3 overtime format 10 years ago.
Okay.
And the NHL eventually adopted it. And what's interesting is that they are now adopting a pick-your-opponent playoff format. So it's a 10-team league, 8 teams make the playoffs, and what they're doing is the top 4 seeds get to pick who they play from the bottom 4 seeds. So the 1 seed could pick 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 would get one of the other 3 teams, et cetera, and so on. And it's interesting because the reason they're doing it, this is actually started by an Austrian league. But obviously, it wouldn't get any kind of notoriety here in the States until an American league actually decided to pick it up. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, they're going to experiment with it for at least this year and maybe a couple of years moving down the road. It sounds like the owners and the general managers are all in on it. They seem to love it, especially, like, the team that is ranked number 1 right now. I don't actually know who it is, but I know that the commissioner of the league was essentially saying that this is going to be important because the number 1 seed has already said they don't want to play the team that finishes 8th because that team right now, whoever it may be, is won like 14 of the last 15 games. They have all the momentum on their side. They're riding a hot streak, and the number 1 team's like, fuck that. We don't want to play these guys. We'll take 7th seed.
It's a fair claim.
Right, so it'll be very interesting to see, how matchups work out and everything else. Because if you think about like last year's playoffs, when Chicago got swept by Nashville, if they had this format in place, there's a 0% chance that the Blackhawks take on the Predators. Blackhawks would never want to take on the Predators because that's the one matchup that is absolute dog shit for Chicago.
Yeah, that team is the Peoria Rivermen.
There we go.
And the team that they would face if they choose the 8th seed would be Fayetteville?
Fayetteville.
No, it'd be Roanoke.
Oh, Roanoke.
So 8 teams make the playoffs in the SPHL out of 10.
Oh, out of 10, yeah. So the Roanoke Rail Yard Dogs, DAWGS.
Dogs.
Of course.
Snoop-a-loop.
The Mississippi River Kings.
Right. So, I mean, it's just an interesting thing, not only because we've talked about it before, but the NHL seems to be the league in the 4 pro sports in North America that is most willing to experiment with different types of, gimmicks isn't the right word, but different types of tweaks to their structure and to their league that they try to make things better. I don't know. I mean, this could be a really interesting thing to see in the NHL.
In the NHL, yeah.
Yeah, especially once they expand the league to 32 teams. When Seattle comes in, then you have to start thinking, well, if they're going to expand, they're probably going to realign. If they realign, how are they going to realign? And then, does it become just 2 conferences? Does it become 2 conferences with 4 divisions? I'm very curious to see how it all shakes out. And then this format's going to be really, really freaking
Yeah,
cool.
I like the idea of once they get the 32nd team in, of just going to 2 conferences and then doing some adopting of this kind of format.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the 2 conferences would work. I don't know why, but I somehow feel like they're going to adopt like the old Adams division, like the old different division names, if they keep divisions as opposed to this like Pacific and Central and Met.
Regionally.
Right, because it doesn't.
Marketed.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily make sense because in the Pacific, we currently have Arizona, Vegas, Edmonton, and Calgary. Like, none of these teams are within 100 miles of the Pacific Ocean. Mm-hmm. And then, on the other side, on the Atlantic...
Toronto, Montreal are nowhere near the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah. And then we have teams like I just had it in the tip of my tongue, and they're in the Met as opposed to the Islanders.
Columbus. Well, Islanders are a metropolitan city. I mean,
right. Sense. I mean, they're in the Met, but they're also on the Atlantic Ocean.
So is New York Rangers, so are the Boston Bruins. Yeah, I mean, you can't get every single one of them right. I get what you're saying. They also had to do it for balancing, too. Could you imagine if, like, right now you had a division with Tampa, Pittsburgh, Toronto, Boston, Columbus? Could you imagine if all 8 playoff teams were all in one division right now? I mean,
oh, yeah, it would be sick. But
it'd be mayhem.
I mean, that's sort of the point, is that that's why I feel like they would go back to some other kind of more arbitrary naming structure if they were to keep divisions. But I'd be talking maybe onto something. They may just go 2 conferences, fuck the divisions, and go on from there.
Yeah, I think that's a much wiser decision.
It was like when the Big Ten went to Leaders and Legends. I'm like, I don't know who's in what fucking conference.
Yeah. Just confusion.
Just confusion. But, so let's look at it. So let's take that kind of situation right now. The NHL standings, would be at this point. Let's see. Let's go to the playoffs. Conference. That's not right. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So let's look at the West because we live in the West. Nashville, Vegas, Winnipeg, Minnesota. You would have to, if you took this playoff format, you would have to eliminate conference, or you'd have to eliminate divisions. You'd have to eliminate this current playoff structure.
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, you could still do it by, you would still have the divisions for the regular season schedule. It would just be the divisions don't necessarily matter once you get to the playoffs.
Okay, so you just have the best 8 teams at that point by points.
Team with the most points picks first, and so on.
So you'd have Nashville, who by the regular system would naturally play Anaheim. But do you think a team like Nashville would probably want to play Colorado or San Jose in this point? Or maybe they fare better. Maybe they've beaten Winnipeg every time. Would they play the 3 seed? Would they say, I want to play Winnipeg?
Well, under the
SPHL
system, you wouldn't be able to. That's not to say that the NHL couldn't change it. They might just say,
That's what I'm saying. Could you adopt a situation where Nashville's 4-0 against Winnipeg, and they know they can beat them with home ice advantage? This is another adaptation to it, obviously, to say, hey, look, we crush Winnipeg every year, but they're good against the rest of the league. We want to get these guys out of the fucking playoffs. We're going to take Winnipeg.
That's possible, yeah.
But could it backfire as well? It's this. That's
absolutely could. Because think about it. A number 1 team is supposed to play a number 8. If the number 1 team right now, like in your example, would be Nashville should play Anaheim. If Nashville picks Colorado, how fucking pissed is Colorado going to be? They're going to say, fuck you if you think that we're an easier out than Anaheim.
Than the 8th seed, yeah.
Right, and they're going to go out there with a chip on their shoulder.
The thing I have with the second round is in this SPHL format is the 4 teams that advance will play each other based on original playoff seeding, highest team playing lowest. I say, why not
let the highest seed remain pick first?
Highest team, yeah, because there's only going to be 4 teams left, top 2 teams. I know you only have a 50-50 shot. If you don't want to play the team in front of you, let's say, oh, no, I'll take that team. And if you're the highest seeded team left, then
it would make sense. I wonder how much of that has to do with logistics,
travel,
especially in a minor league system like that, where they don't necessarily have the money to
wait around and do that.
Exactly. But I mean, the NHL, obviously, this is a new concept. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to take a lot of sitting around and figuring all this stuff out. But okay. So let's see. So Nashville, it would take. If I'm Nashville, I have to look at all the the stats and figures against each other. But I personally would probably lean towards taking Colorado at that point.
I would lean towards San Jose.
Wow, I think I'd stick with Anaheim. Anaheim can't stay healthy.
Well, they're healthy right now, though.
Well, right the second they are.
I'm just saying the playoffs, they're 14 games away if they were still healthy, and we had this format. Okay, so let's say, let's just say Nashville sticks with Anaheim. If you're Vegas in the 2 seed, you have everybody but Anaheim. Who do you take in this? Who do you take in this spot?
San Jose, probably.
Oh, no, I avoid the shit out of San Jose. Those games against San Jose, Vegas-San Jose games are the chippiest games I think I've seen Vegas play all year. So I think I stick with Colorado.
That's the thing. I mean, I look at all these teams, and, I don't want to play Dallas or San Jose. Colorado would probably be my first pick, or even, I think if we have the home ice advantage, I like Winnipeg. I like us to beat Winnipeg in a 7-game series.
Okay.
But that's crazy. That's what I'm saying. You start looking at this thing, okay, so then you look at, well, the way the format is realistically in the SPHL, you only have Dallas, San Jose, Colorado, and Anaheim. But I say open it up. I mean, if Vegas wants to be ballsy and go after Winnipeg and,
2 against the 3, yeah.
Yeah. They're already doing it now. I mean, Winnipeg would play Minnesota if the season ended today.
Yeah.
And they're 3-4, you know what I'm saying? So.
Oh, yeah.
And then, San Jose would play Anaheim? No. San Jose would play
Dallas.
Yep.
Well, no, because San Jose is the second place in their division. They would play Anaheim.
Yeah. No, I forgot about the.
Well, no, wait, yeah, they would play Anaheim for sure. Isn't that how that works?
No, the first team in the conference plays wild card number 2, which would be Nashville against Anaheim right now. We would play Colorado as it stands right now.
But Colorado's not in our division.
No, you play the better of the wild card teams if you're the second.
That's right. We're second overall seed. That's right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we would play, what did you say it was?
Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado. So I'd be okay with Colorado at this point.
Yeah, Winnipeg and Minnesota would play each other, and Dallas and San Jose would play each other.
Is that right? That doesn't seem right.
No, that's right.
No,
Dallas is in the Central. San Jose is in the Pacific.
Right. This is the.
Oh.
1, 2, 3. No, Anaheim. San Jose and Anaheim play each other.
Yeah.
And we would play Colorado. And then Nashville would play Dallas?
Nashville would play Colorado. We would play Dallas.
Dallas, that's right. Okay. Damn, that's what I'm saying. Fuck this fucking playoff format, man.
And that's part of the problem is that this shit's so confusing. So letting the teams pick their own way
would be interesting.
It would be interesting. It would suck for the talking heads like us trying to figure out what team is going to
set the matchups. Yeah. But that's another talking point for everybody. That creates more generation of communication, which is obviously always good publicity for the NHL. Anytime you're talking about the NHL, whether it's good or bad,
and it would give you a valid reason to win late games in the season if you're going to be like a 2 or a 3 seed, compared to now if you're going to be second or third in the division and not change. Why even bother being 100% and instead of playing a full out game, start resting some players?
Well, that's fair. I mean, like Minnesota right now is just kind of coasting through the rest. They can't really catch Nashville. They may be able to catch Winnipeg with a hot streak, but they're kind of firmly entrenched in playing Winnipeg right now as long as they don't...
Winnipeg on the road, yeah.
Don't blow it. Yeah, they could go for the home field advantage, home ice advantage, but...
Yeah, they're 6 points behind, and they have one less game to play.
Right.
They have 13 remaining.
But, I mean, if they had a chance to catch these guys, with 14 games to play, if they had a chance to catch them for the ability to choose their opponent after Nashville...
That would be more worth it.
It might make more sense.
Yeah.
Might be a more... God, Nashville's 9-0-1 their last 10.
God, that's fucking sick.
They're so
But
good.
again, this is coming from a league that pioneered the 3-on-3 overtime format.
Right.
And that was something the NHL saw. They saw that it was successful, and they kind of stole the idea eventually. So I'm wondering if this is something that the league... I mean, the league's got to be paying attention to it, right? The NHL?
I would say so.
Yeah.
Well, this was announced 6 months ago, and their new format was announced before the season. It was announced October 16th.
I mean, it might be
so I'm sure
a couple years down the road, maybe once Seattle gets into the league and all that.
I'm sure that they have their ear on it to see how it went. Are they individual? Are they one-game playoffs? Am I reading that right? I think they're one-game playoffs with a 3-game best-of-3 championship
In the SPHL?
Though I think the first round are one game.
Be interesting.
Yeah, I think the first round are one game. The second round are best of 3, and then the finals are best of 3.
Interesting.
In the SPHL, if I'm reading this correctly, their first round is winner take all, and then second round is best of 3, and their finals are best of 3.
Okay.
So that'd be cool. I mean, that's not something that's ever going to happen in hockey. They're not going to.
No.
They're not going to do best of.
No,
that's money.
They're keeping that, especially that 16 wins to win the championship thing, which for a long time was the toughest playoff road to hoe in professional sports until the NBA copied it.
Mm-hmm. It's still the toughest.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But they're really proud of that 16 wins. To the point where the fucking New Jersey Devils, wherever arena they play in, is off of exit 16W.
Is it?
Yeah.
I never knew that. That's an interesting piece of information. Hey, yo.
Uh-oh.
It's a bad move to keep your phone underneath your
sack.
Your man's. So when it vibrates, it feels really weird. Anyway, that's probably a good stopping point for that point. Anyways, so we'll have to keep an eye on the SPHL's new format and maybe the NHL's potential to adopt it. So, anyways, well, we had a lot to talk about today, and I don't want to talk about it anymore at this point. So I'm going to wrap it up.
It's getting hard to breathe in here.
Oh my God. Anyways, for Aaron, for Spike, for Togan, Tony, we appreciate everybody tuning in. You can catch our podcasts on vegassquares.com, forwardmile.com, and 12ozsportsradio.com, 12ouncesportsradio.com. We appreciate you tuning in, and have a great evening.